Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host, your friend, your coach of the Leaders Without podcast. They have a wonderful guest, my new good friend, Sally Love. What a beautiful name. What a beautiful background. As I tell her, she looks like a fairy straight from one of those fairy tales. But yeah, she may have been a fairy, and she probably is a fairy at a soul level because, yeah. So we have a lot to talk about. We had a wonderful conversation last week, and I really like what she's doing. She's first and foremost, we have a lot in common because just like me, she's a globetrotter. She lived in many countries, especially two countries that are very dear to me. One in Thailand. I used to live in Thailand as well. And even though I haven't been to Italy yet, but that's one place I really want to go. She lived in Florence for 2.5 years. I'm super jealous of that. Can't wait to do that. And as well as in the US. So she's been around the block, so to speak. And just, I don't know if it's the same for her, but for me, after 10 countries, 4 continents, I'm only getting warmed up, getting started. I'm sure it's the same for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Payman,
Yeah.
I've loved traveling. I didn't unfortunately live in Thailand. I just visited there, but
Okay.
it was somewhere that just filled my soul with
Oh, absolutely.
so much joy. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what Sally is doing on top of traveling and exploring the world is also she's having a great impact by helping, empowering women to think differently about menopause. And she has a beautiful tagline, which is transforming the chaos of menopause into vibrant health and a soulful life. And on top of that, just like me, she's a fellow podcaster and she's been using her podcast for her business. That's something I'm passionate about. We're going to talk about that. So we have a lot to unpack here. So without any further ado, Sally, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much, Payman. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here.
Very happy. Pleasure is all mine. So as I told you last time when we spoke, the types of conversation I'd like to have is to have a look under the hood, so to speak, to see what's in your heart, to have a heart-to-heart conversation, hence the name Leaders with a Heart. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So we're going to talk about your business, your impact, and your travels later on. But first and foremost, for people who don't know you, who's Sally as a person and as a human being?
Oh, that's a good question. Adjectives would be, well, it's really actually, it's very interesting that you asked this question because this is something I help people with within my work, within Soulful Menopause, because it's a big time of transition. So there's a whole new you that really sort of starts to emerge. And what I love to do is come up with adjectives about who you are, who this new person is. So I'm just stepping into this new role, so to speak, of this new phase of my life. Bubbly is certainly
Oh, yes. I can see that. Yes, yes, yes.
Deeply connected to nature. Oh,
Mhm.
that really fuels me. If I don't have nature around me, if I can't see it, if I can't get into it, it really affects me on every level, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. It's not good for me not to be around nature. So very connected to nature, very spiritual. I have a big background through my life of working spiritually. I used to be a professional psychic, and I was on TV doing that for
Really?
several years.
Wow.
Yeah,
You did not
yeah.
tell me that. All right.
Well, and I left her behind a little bit when I studied to become a nutritionist because that was very scientific and mind-based. And now I have that on board. I'm starting to open up to my spirituality again, which is really wonderful. So without going on forever about it, that just gives you a few little tasters of who
That's
Sally
the
is.
beautiful, I would say, tasty appetizer. So we only getting
Yes,
started. So
aperitivo.
you mentioned adjectives. That's a great way. If you were to summarize yourself in 3 words only, what would
Oh,
they be?
oh my word. Okay. Well, bubbly, spiritual, heart-centered.
Mm. You mentioned something else. You mentioned that you're spiritual and very connected to nature. As far as my understanding goes, it's very hard to be spiritual without being nature. Nature lover and vice versa. What are your thoughts on that? Because, in my opinion, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, they can do.
Mhm.
I across people who like to get into spirituality because they want to escape their bodies, they want to escape the world. They don't actually feel very grounded and safe here. So, you know, my many years working as a psychic, I did find a lot of people would be living in the realm of spirit rather than actually down here on the ground in planet Earth. So, yeah, I can certainly see what you're saying. And I think if you're well balanced, that is the case. But sometimes, yeah, some people can be living way up there and not actually wanting to be in their physical bodies.
You know, that's very interesting while we're talking. Another thought came to my mind. I would love your feedback on that. I have you seen cases of people that may not be as successful as they would hope to be, and then seeking refuge into the world of spirituality as a way to escape?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like it can be like any addiction, really. If we're not wanting to face something, you know, particularly if it's a life lesson that we're needing to learn, we can, you know, just be diverted, and it can be in so many different things, and spirituality is certainly one of them. You know, yeah, constantly meditating to sort of escape. Constantly meditating, by the way, is wonderful, but if you're using it as a form of escapism, not so much. So yeah, something else came to mind then, but it's just fitted away, but I'll maybe
it may come back after
it comes back.
I love the way this has started. So now I want us to start by asking a series of rapid fire questions to further get to know you.
Right. Feel like I'm on a hot seat here.
Listen. Oh yes, tell us. What makes you happy as a person?
Oh, nature for certain. The sun when it comes out.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Connecting with beautiful people, all different walks of life. Peace. Just being at home. I've recently moved to the UK from living in America. Recently had a lovely wood burning stove put in. So sitting at home with the wood burning stove going, my puppy not misbehaving, which doesn't happen very often, and just sitting there, just enjoying the peace and maybe reading some inspirational book. That's joy. That's peace to me.
Beautiful. Now, what makes you smile?
Other people's smiles.
That's lovely. Now, let's take the happiness a couple of notches higher. What makes your soul come alive in a good way?
Yeah, well, that's definitely nature again. I'm going to be repeating myself here because I get a lot from nature. But yeah, nature does. It inspires me. When I get out into nature, if I've got lots of things on my mind, which I have had recently, just getting into nature and just letting it all just, you know, just lift off. It just clears the clutter, and then you can really just drop into your soul. Beautifully supportive nature. Yeah.
Love that. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what makes you sad and angry?
Good question. It makes me sad when I see suffering in the world. It makes me sad when I see people getting caught into anger and judgments. But then I often sort of come above whenever I feel something like that. I acknowledge it, I let it sit with me. I say, okay, what's this bringing up for me? What can I learn from this? Because usually there's some trigger and something going on within me that needs to be seen and heard. Otherwise, I wouldn't react to it in the first place. And then after that, I like to take sort of like an eagle's view of it and just see the bigger picture. And sometimes people who would make me angry or sad, I can suddenly see, oh, wow, I wonder what actually happened to them in order for them to be like that. And that brings in my sense of compassion. So yeah.
Now, what scares you?
Hmm.
Spiders?
It scares me. No, spiders don't scare me.
Oh,
I
wow.
put a really big one out last night.
Oh, yes.
Just crawling up the stairs actually very quickly. No, spiders don't. Snakes I'm not too keen on. I think, well, I don't know whether I would call it scared, but I really want to make sure that I'm living my true self in this life, and that I leave this life, this world, a better place. That I've played my part in some way. It's not sort of on the level of scared, but it is in the fact that I really don't want to leave without having achieved that. Yeah.
Now, what would you say is your number one personal superpower?
Ooh, well, that probably would have to be my psychic abilities, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Love that. Now, you kind of like traveling, right?
I do. Yes.
Just a little bit, right?
Yes, I've traveled quite a bit.
All right. What was your very first trip?
Oh, that would have been when I was a couple of months old, and we went
Wow.
over to Sark in the Channel Islands, where my mother's parents used to live. And so I think that was the first time I was on an aeroplane when I was a few months old.
You still remember that when you were even, what,
I
two?
don't remember that, no, but I've
Oh,
been
okay.
told that that was,
I was
yeah.
like, whoa, she's amazing if she can remember that far back.
I can remember one of my, if being abroad, and my first memory would be being, I don't know how old I was, maybe about 5, and we were on a cruise, and I was dressed up as a cowgirl for
Oh,
some fancy dress party on board the cruise. I can remember that time.
awesome. Now, let me take you down a different type of traveling down memory line. Go back to when you were a young girl. You know, when we're kids growing up, people around us, parents, teachers, relatives, always ask us, so Sally, what do you want to become when you grow up? What was your answer back then as a young girl?
Well, I don't think anyone actually asked me that question, funnily enough. But what I was doing naturally is I loved dancing,
Ah,
just used to dance all the time. And I used to make up all these routines. And I used to get all the kids in the in the road that we lived in together and put on these plays. So really, I should have moved into acting, but I would never knew that that was a possibility. That was a natural talent of mine, perhaps. And also, I loved writing stories, which I have had a book published, but it's a factual one. I am actually just about to, when I feel called to, start writing a fiction book, but with fact in it, with regard to soulful menopause. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
okay. Growing up, what was your relationship with school? Did you love it or hate it?
Hated it.
Why?
Absolutely hated it. I was bullied.
Oh, okay.
I felt really on the outside of
Were you bullied
everything.
mostly by boys or by girls or by both of them?
Girls.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
girls, I think.
Girls can be
Yeah.
mean, especially in school. Oh, yeah.
Very mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't ever feel a part of anything. I felt like I was on the
Were
outside of
you shy
everything.
growing up or?
Um, I'm not sure that I was shy when I was growing up, but when I was at school, no, I wasn't actually.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, there are some sort of things that happened earlier in life that I think actually moved towards me being like that. And probably one of them was being psychic, and I didn't know. When I was
Oh,
go to bed at night, I would just have all these people talking to me, and they would fill my room, all these people chattering away. And I would remember I would have the sheet of my bed sheet, and I would just sort of stuff it in my mouth. And I think it was my way of saying shut up. And I would put all my toys over my head. And so when my mum came in, she always used to just have to take all of these toys off my mouth and pull all of the sheet out of my mouth. So, you know, I don't know whether that might have played a part in me feeling a little bit different, but couldn't vocalize it, didn't understand it consciously. Yeah.
When you said that you had all these people in your room, were you hearing voices in your head? Were you actually seeing them?
I saw a few, but mostly hearing voices. Yeah.
Were they happy, positive ones or mean and evil ones?
No, they were, it was just like if you can imagine standing in the middle of a party and closing your eyes, you
Oh,
can't almost hear too much of what anyone's saying because
scattering.
everybody's
Okay.
talking. Yeah. But I did have somebody who would come in and I would be a bit scared, and it was a male energy, and then they would sit on the bed. It would be this dark energy that would come in and sit on the edge of the bed. I remember I'd have to move my feet, but then I would instantly fall asleep. So I think that they were my guardian, and they probably just got rid of everybody else so I could go to sleep. Yeah.
And did you share those to your mother, to your father, or anyone in your family?
No, not really. I do remember, you know, previous, you know, past lives. I have some memories of that. But when I started learning just naturally how to read the tarot, it just happened. I just did it.
Wow.
I remember I just used to do it for fun. And then the word got out and suddenly everyone was coming to see me. I realized, oh my word, I'm going to have to charge here, you know,
How
so I
old were you
charged
when
a
you,
little bit.
how old were you when you started reading the tarot?
Oh, I was probably only in my early 20s at the
Oh
time
wow.
then. And then and then I remember saying to my parents, oh, well, I'm going to have to tell them because this is something I'm doing on the side now. And so I remember saying that. And then they said, oh, well, we've always known you've been a bit, you know, over imaginative is what my parents would say I was.
So you mentioned having these incredible psychic abilities. Were you born with those or they just started
Mm.
suddenly appearing?
No, I'm sure I was born with them. Well, you know, early memories of childhood, like I say, yeah.
So you mentioned you were able to hear and see,
Mm.
auras and whatever spirit entities appearing. Were you also able to see to have other qualities, like for example hearing voices or knowing what something was about to happen, predicting the future or anything like that?
Initially, as a child, it was mediumship. So that is
Mm.
connecting with people who've passed over. And I'm sure I was connecting with my guides as, you know, this figure would come in at night. And then as my rational mind started taking over more, and I was being told I was just being over imaginative and, you know, it being pushed to the side, I would start to question it, and then that blocks it. And then I opened up more to my clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. I sort of have all of those in varying mixes of those. And then, yes, after that, when I just started doing it naturally, the mediumship would come in at times. I never really like to just do a pure mediumship reading because you can never know if somebody's going to pop over and say hello from from the other side or not. And a lot of the time I would get in touch with people from way back in their family. I remember saying to one woman, describing this couple and this photograph, and that they were by one of those old water pumps or like a well or something. And she said, oh no, I don't know anyone like that. I don't have any photograph or anything. She came back to me several months later and said, I've got the photograph. I found the people. And they were way back in her family. So, yeah.
One thing that's fascinating. One thing I always was curious and wanted to know, why is it that some people have these incredible psychic abilities and others do not?
I think we all do. I think we all have the capability of it.
Mhm.
I think that, our brains are rather like an antenna. They're you know, we're picking up signals all the time. And I love quantum physics, really just starting to get my teeth into that, which is saying that consciousness doesn't actually live so much within us and our brains. It actually is up here, you know, it's out here. And our antennae are just bringing all this information in and broadcasting actually who we are. So I think we all have the ability to tune in, if we're taught how to. But I do think that some people may be better than others with it. It's like anything, you know, you could teach somebody to draw, but they may not become an artist.
Yeah. Like, for example, what I mean is that some people are just born with it, like you, for example, and other people, like for me, I would love to have to be able to have any kind of psychic abilities. And I've been really immersing myself for the past 2 years, and pretty much I'll end with anything spirituality and all that. And there's a couple of big YouTube channels that I really followed, which would do tarot reading and channeling. And I'm fascinated by that. So why me? Why I'm not able to? What can I do now to? So instead of asking why not me, let me ask a better question. What can I do to awaken those dormant skills?
The first thing I would say, get into a good meditation practice where you let go, because the more you try, the more you block it. So yeah, a meditation practice where you can just sort of like clear the clutter that surrounds us in our brains, you know, in our day-to-day lives. The more you can drop into that sort of sense of peace, that's a really good place to start from. And then from there, you can learn how to just sort of raise your vibration to then be able to communicate with.
You know, I always wanted to do meditation, but for some reason I haven't done it until this week, Monday. I made a promise to myself to do it. I started. My sister sent me a couple of meditation, one before sleeping, one before first thing in the morning. And I'm going to be honest. At night, a quarter to it, I fall asleep. And during the morning when I do it, I found it beyond boring. And sometimes I even put it at time and a half or speed ×2. Because it's still freaking boring as a guided meditation. And my mind, I cannot for the life of me quiet my mind. There's all this ideas just flashing. But I know it's a process. I need to, like anything, just hone in and work on it. But so far, after 3 days only of doing meditation, you know, I'm having it's a lot more challenging than I thought it would be.
Yeah. And there's a few things I can say on that. The first thing is to find a meditation practice that isn't boring to you, something that lights you up, because there are so many different forms of meditation.
Yes.
So just explore, find something that feels, you know, fun to you. The other thing to do, just even start trying it for a few minutes. And don't feel you have to jump in. And
the meditation that you sent me is about 25 minutes each.
Right. Yeah. So you may want to start off smaller and then gradually build up. And the other thing is, it's perfectly normal to have all of those thoughts around. And it's not like trying to get rid of them. The more you can actually just surrender to being with them and letting them, what I always say is almost imagining it like it's a fluffy white cloud. That thought is a fluffy white cloud, and just let it go. And the next one will come up, let it go. And when you first start meditating, you're going to have a whole sky full of these fluffy clouds floating around.
It's like a little kid, just start counting the sheeps before sleeping.
Yeah. And just let it be. Just know that that's fine. And you may well have a whole month of being with your fluffy white cloud thoughts all the time, but know that is perfectly okay. That's where to start. So just like with the psychic stuff, the more you try, the harder it gets.
Yeah, the guided meditation my sister sent me is by Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's a big name, but for some reason he just puts me to sleep. It bores me out of my mind. That's why I have to put it at the speed ×2, almost ×3 now. But when I put it ×3, I can barely understand them. So just put it at 1.5 or 2.
Well, yeah, sometimes it can be because there's something in our subconscious as well that we don't want to look at. But anyway, yeah, it can
Have
be
you
all sorts
noticed,
of things.
speaking of guided meditation, have you noticed that some voices may be more effective for certain people, like whether it's a male or female voice, maybe more, for example, have you noticed anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I love doing guided meditations. Haven't done any for a while really, but I have got one free one on my website,
Oh, okay.
which actually takes you off to meet the fairies, which is really lovely. It's a very mystical one. But yeah, it's finding a voice that resonates with you.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Listen, I love this conversation. We went off the track, but I didn't mind it because it was so beautiful. So let's get back on track now. Let's go back to when you were in your, in school. What was your very first job?
My very first job was my very first.
Was that a tarot?
My very first, no, I'm trying to think which came first. I
Mm.
did actually do some modeling.
Oh, wow. I can see that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So I was a model. I also did temporary secretarial work to fit
Mm.
in around my modeling. And then I actually worked at a private hospital as a nurse assistant within the operating theatres,
Okay.
which I absolutely loved. That was the start.
What did you major in college and university?
I didn't go to university.
Ooh, wonderful. Good job. Awesome. Now, moving forward, from the time
Mm.
you left school to now, how would you describe your path? Would you say it was pretty much straightforward, smooth sailing once you got into one lane? Or was it like turns and twists, like a roller coaster with a few rapids and
A lot.
oh yeah, the full
The lot.
experience. All right.
Yeah, I have lived about 5 or 6 lives in one so far, I think.
That's beautiful. Hey, what more can we ask for? You know?
It's certainly been a rich experience, that's for sure.
Sometimes bumpy, but bumpy is fun, you know?
Very bumpy at times, yes. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Speaking of bumpy, there is a saying, I'm sure you heard it, which says, change your story, change your life. And by story, I mean what we tell ourselves inside our head all day long. So when you, Sally, had to change your story to either change your life or bring your life to where you want it to be, how did you do it? Was it to the help of friends, family, mentors, books, videos? Tell us the process that you used to share to change your story to change your life.
Yeah, I've done that many times through my life so far, many times. And now all of those experiences and that wisdom I've gained from all of that is in part of my Soulful Menopause work, actually. And I really help women to step into what I call their sage woman's destiny. And this is when you've reinvented yourself. So how, do you get there? And throughout my life, it's been a variety of things. It has certainly been inspirational books and videos. Sometimes it may just be one sentence from a book.
Exactly.
And I do find that I will pick and choose from different books, and they set my thinking and off in one direction, and I get inspired and go off in another direction. Certainly videos and good films and things. So certainly, when The Secret came out, that was a big one for everybody to start thinking about how we create life, our own lives, how we are the master of our own destiny. I think that it's built up obviously since then. So things like that, and listening to my soul. I think that's been the number one, has been, I suppose because I've been psychic, that's also helped me, because I've been able to tune in and feel what feels right, what doesn't feel right, to recognize that, and then to have the courage to make that change, whatever that change has been. So yes, it's a mixture of things, but I think ultimately it rests within my soul.
Beautiful.
And listening to my soul, and then moving forward from there.
Speaking of that, while we were talking, a couple of thoughts came to mind. Number one, have you used your psychic, qualities to get yourself maybe out of danger, for example,
Um,
or a very tricky situation, for example?
yeah, I think I've had a few, just got some vague memories of walking alone at night and getting a sense of unease and
Mhm.
then crossing the road because there was somebody I didn't like their energy and diverting. I remember once I think I diverted where I was walking back into a more, lit place with people around. So certainly that. There have been times when I have ignored my intuition and got burnt.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Now, conversely, have you used your psychic abilities to help you in business and life in ways, for example, maybe even perhaps getting the winning numbers of the lottery, for example?
Yeah, that would be nice. Unfortunately, not that, but certainly in my career and my life, yes. Um, Especially when you're in a time of chaos and uncertainty, you've got everything going on around you, you just can't see the wood for the trees. I love to then just do a reading for myself and I will look at, okay, what is it that I need to be aware of right now? And I will look into that. It can be challenging because when you do readings for yourself, you're only sort of seeing through your eyes. It's obviously a lot better if it's coming through somebody else's eyes and looking towards you, which is a different approach. But it does help me a lot. And sometimes I'll have an idea and I will feel into it. And then if it's feeling, oh, I'm not sure, this could be a good thing, or it might feel a bit neutral, or I'm not so sure about this, I will use the cards to have a look and go, okay, what do I need to be aware about this situation? Is this a good thing to pursue? So yeah, I will use it quite a lot. In fact, it's a normal part of my life.
So, how accurate are those card readings that you can do on a tarot?
Well, it depends. If I'm looking at giving myself some guidance
Mhm.
about where I go from here and is this a good road to take, I would say 100%. It's yeah, it gives me that beautiful insight without a doubt.
Would you say it's
Um,
the cards giving you that, or is it mostly your gut feeling,
no,
your instinct within you, deep down? You know that, hey, you know that what I need to do.
yeah, the cards are just a tool.
Hmm.
Um, I've done tea leaf reading before for fun for people when we've been in a
Wow.
restaurant, that especially the China tea when you're in a Chinese restaurant. That's fun. Somebody could give me a box of matches and I could use those. I don't even actually have to use anything. But there's a set of tarot cards I have been using for years and years and years. They wear out. I get exactly the same pack again because they really do speak to me. And
Now
there have been,
you're getting me very intrigued about tarot. Do you have? Is there any tarot book or tarot resources online, or any cards that you would recommend for someone that is just starting out, like me, for
hmm,
example?
good question. Um, what I would say is see if you can, if you've got to happen to be near some shop that you can go to and have a look through all of them. There are places like that in London, a shop that I used to work from called Mysteries in London. You could look through a whole book with all of the different cards, there's hundreds of them. But if you're looking online, just go for the ones that you feel drawn to, the ones that go, oh, wow, they really speak to me, they're beautiful, they light you up, because that's the most important thing, that you really love them and you feel inspired by them. Because sometimes you can just go, okay, well, I'll tell you to get tarot of the old path, which are the ones I've always used for years and years, but they may not speak to you. In fact, they're very pagan, and some people may not have some pagan beliefs, so they may not be right for them. So yeah, always to what you feel drawn to. And then I would say, don't look at the book. Don't look up the meanings. Just play with them. Have fun with them. Ask yourself some very simple questions and use 3 cards. Look at the cards and go, what am I getting from this? And do that without looking into the
Listen
book
to your
that
gut
tells you what
feeling.
each of the cards mean. Yeah. And just get to know them. And if you've got people in them, that's great, because you can like get to know the personalities of these people in the cards. So that's where I would say start off from.
Beautiful. Thank you. This is fascinating. We can talk, we can do an entire, not just an episode, but an entire season. Maybe even we can do a podcast, you and me, just talking about, rambling about, psychics and mediums. But
Oh, that
we'll,
would
we'll,
be
we'll
fun.
yeah, absolutely. But now let's move forward because, wow, this is fascinating. Now, let's talk about the impact you're having in the world. What is your business? What are you doing? What's your impact out there?
Okay, so my business is called Soulful Menopause.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a natural nutritionist and soul wisdom coach. So you can probably see where the soul wisdom comes from now from our previous chat.
Oh, yes.
And so what I do is I support women holistically as they transition through the chaos of menopause. I love to empower women to see menopause from a different light, from a more spiritual light, a more positive light, because it's seen from a really negative perspective at the moment, and in fact, it's actually a beautiful sacred rite of passage. And instead, a lot of the time, it's seen as almost like a disease that's got to be, medicated and dealt with, rather than this beautiful, soulful experience it can be. But and also, I would say that at the moment, it's mainly only focused on a physical level with women, and it's not just physical. This is a huge transformation. It's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. It affects you on every level of your being.
Wow.
And, it is a time, I say it, I support women through the chaos of menopause, because it is a chaos. The
Sure.
chaos is there because there's going to be a transformation. You cannot have transformation without chaos. Things have to change, stuff has to come up in order to sort of to facilitate change. You have to have the chaos of that caterpillar breaking down in order to come alive as a butterfly. And part of that process is painful. There's a death aspect that's going on there. And so what I like to support women with is to be okay with that chaos, to actually, like I was saying before, be this eagle that's over swooping over with what's going on with you at the moment, and see the bigger picture, see the transformation that you're stepping into, see this as a beautiful sacred rite of passage. And the more that women can actually be grounded and centered, which I help them with, to get grounded and centered, to get connected with nature, then you can be like that solid, healthy tree that's got its roots deep in the earth. And no matter what gale is coming along, they're getting swayed by this gale to and fro, but they're remaining rooted to the spot. There's this beautiful sense of deep connection and peace within the chaos. So, that's what I teach women to do, and very much about them moving into more vibrant health, because our health is just like, well, certainly for me, as I started on the process, it was just complete chaos with me health-wise, which is why when I started coming through it, I knew that my calling was soulful menopause, especially when I saw there was no support out there when I started, when I was going through all of this. And I thought, this isn't just physical. No way is this just physical.
Fascinating.
So yeah, it was very much my calling, and I have 3 phases that I teach women about. Do you want to hear that, or?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I had other
So,
questions that came to mind, but I will let you continue with that. I have one question came to mind, but
oh, go ahead, and
no,
then
no.
I'll talk about my three
All
phases
right.
afterwards.
So my question might sound almost a bit, naive and a newbie, but sure, I heard about menopause, but as a man, I haven't experienced it. I don't think I'll experience it. So what exactly is menopause? How does it start manifesting? Is there any, at what age does it start to show up and all the kind of stuff that you as a woman, but as a man, just because, I'm curious. I just want to understand better so I
Mm,
can, appreciate and respect better, women. So tell us a little
mm,
bit more about what is exactly menopause, how does it manifest, at what age does it start showing up, and what are the signs of it, and how does it
mhm.
impact the life of a woman going through it?
Yes.
Maybe there's a bunch of questions, but you know what I mean? Just give us the 101.
Yeah. Okay. So it's as women's hormones start changing. Now, it's different for women as to when they start menopause. Some can be surgically thrown into menopause by having a hysterectomy, and having their ovaries removed, for example. But let's talk about natural here. Usually it starts around the early 40s.
Okay.
And women might probably don't even know that it's happening. For me, I started getting heart palpitations in my early 40s. It can show up completely differently for people. So some women can come just sail through it with no physical symptoms at all. I've got a friend who just said, "Oh, my period stopped," and that was that. And other women like myself go through this massive chaos. But yeah, it's when all our hormones start fluctuating. And the thing is that in perimenopause, which is the time leading up to menopause, when a woman is still having her monthly cycle, during this time, periods can become very erratic. They can suddenly be very heavy and painful one month and then not have a period the next month, or they can just start changing the days slightly. You can find, oh, they've just shifted by a day here or there. They can be completely all over the place. And usually this is a gradual build up, but like I said, it's different for everyone. And then a whole host of things can start happening. And it does all depend on someone's health and how they've eaten and how they've treated their bodies beforehand as well. That can have an impact on menopause, how well balanced their hormone levels have been before, whether they've been on any hormone treatment up until then, like taking the pill or having the coil fitted or something. All these things can affect us. And yeah, as far as symptoms, wow, well, a lot of anxiety and depression can come up, which is very seriously overlooked with menopause. Panic attacks can come up. And that's awful because a lot of women going through perimenopause will go to their doctor and they'll say that they're feeling depressed and teary and they've got these panic attacks and they're just given some medication.
Speaking of
for
that
it.
depression, is it depression as a result of what's happening in their body, or is that
Yes,
more because it's not related, but just how they feel, maybe unrelated to that?
yes, and yes. So
Okay, both. Okay, wow.
it's the hormones that are influencing it, but then also, and this is what I talk about, it's also stuff coming up to the surface in order for us to see. So sometimes women may start getting really depressed because actually underneath it is being triggered something in their life that they're just dissatisfied with. And this is the chaos of menopause, which is going, okay, these are things that you need to be aware of. And in fact, that ties in very nicely with my first of the three phases called the sacred gateway. And, I talk about being in life, in life, you're going down a pathway of your life, you've got a backpack on. And every major experience you have in your life, you pick up a stone for, or, and some experiences can be really big, like a big breakup that affected you. And maybe you're putting a big boulder in your rucksack. Other times you may just pick up a little pebble and put it in of that experience. And you're going through, down your pathway of your life, putting all of these rocks and stones in your backpack. you come to a crossroads at menopause, and then you have this opportunity to walk through what I call the sacred gateway. And that's if you're wanting to move into a more spiritual, more self-aware process. And this is where you take the backpack off and you have the opportunity to open it up. And inside are these rocks and stones, and each of these are symbolizing all these experiences you've had for your life until now. And so they're all coming up and they're all swirling around you, and all of these thoughts and feelings and these emotions and everything are all coming up and swirling around you. It's a big time of chaos, but they're coming up because you're going to have this opportunity to clear it all. You don't want to be walking around with that heavy backpack anymore. And so this is where, with you're saying that this depression, the anxiety and things like that can come up, not just from the hormones, but because we are being called forth to this transformation, to this sacred rite of passage that we've entered.
Thank you. Another question came to mind. Is menopause the same for all women, regardless of race? Is it the same for white women, black women, Asian women, Indian women, or is it just every woman? Is it different for each race, or is it the same for every female in the world?
That's a very good question. And it depends on the individual again. I'm a holistic nutritionist, and I'm very much looking at the individual. In some instances where, for example, like in Japan, where they eat a lot of seaweed, they're getting some really good iodine into their bodies. They can sometimes have a much better experience of menopause. You can have, for example, black women are more prone to uterine fibroids. And so they can, cause some issues throughout their, their adult life. But yeah, it really does come down to the individual.
I guess lifestyle and diet play big roles.
And your thoughts, your beliefs that you've carried
Stress level
with
and all
you
that.
from stress, beliefs from your ancestors, from your mother and how she saw menopause. There's a lot involved in it.
That's amazing. I never thought that, talking about menopause could be that fascinating, but it is actually. Seriously. Seriously. Wow, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure.
This is what I love about the podcast, is because it's part of my ongoing education, learning about things I thought I knew and learning about things I had absolutely no idea. So thank you.
Yeah. And, with symptoms, it's, on my website, you can see a whole list of them, but all sorts of aches and pains and memory problems. And I mean, the list goes on with what can happen as well.
Is there an equivalent of menopause, but for men?
There's been known as the menopause, yes.
Really?
But,
tell me more. What is it about?
Yeah. Which is once again a fluctuation of hormones, but it's not a sharp drop like and the erraticness that women experience. So it can be a more sort of gradual process.
I just entered I'm 41 now, so I want to know what's ahead of me, what's ahead for me. So I'm curious.
Yeah, well, that would depend on you as an individual. Yeah.
I'm quite active. I try to stay active. I try to eat healthy. I know I need to work on that, but I'm doing my best. I completely remove any stress from my life. I don't allow stress. Even one of my superpowers has been, since I was, for as long as I remember, and I'm not boasting, I'm not an arrogant, selfish asshole. I do not get stressed. Nothing stresses me.
Wonderful.
Someone say, "Oh, I'm gonna fire you." Okay, go ahead. I'm gonna do this to you. Okay, I don't care. Seriously, I don't know if that's a curse or that's a blessing, but nothing stresses me.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, as long as it's not being internalized, then I think that's great.
No, exactly. And I don't hold grudges. I can have an argument with someone, and then 5 minutes after, we're just, hey, let's have a drink, let's talk, and as if nothing happened.
Yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful. Now let's get back to your business. So you help women. Do you focus on a specific category of women? what I'm saying is, who's your ideal client avatar?
Yeah, she's a spiritual woman
Okay.
transitioning through menopause. Absolutely. Very much so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to be spiritual and spiritually minded to be able to work with me, because I move into the realms of working with your chakras and, you know, your energy, and yeah.
How long have you been in this business?
Well, soulful menopause itself, or I mean, because working within, you know, the
Helping
spiritual
women, your
industry has
current
been many
business.
years.
Yeah. So,
I think this is probably soulful menopause now. It's a good question. It's probably about 3 years now, I suppose,
okay.
because I had to go through the stuff myself and find my way through. And so, yeah, it's relatively new in that respect.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
Now, speaking of impact, please share with us an example of the most remarkable transformation you've seen from one of your clients so far.
Ah. Ah. Hmm. Well, what would that be? I'm thinking of a few people here. I have one lady who really didn't have a connection to herself or her soul. And she was completely transformed by learning how to, first of all, acknowledge that it's there and then connect with her soul. And now she can just ask her soul any question during the day for an answer about where she is in her life, where she wants to go. She finished working with me a while ago, so she's gone through that transformation process. She's up and running by herself. She's empowered. She is a beautiful example of being able to be deeply connected with her soul and to be able to just recognize sometimes those curveballs that come into life and then just sort of see it from a different perspective, to remain grounded and rooted and to be able to make some big decisions. So for one example was that she started doing a job because she felt very drawn towards it. And then she realized when she was doing it for a while, it wasn't actually fulfilling her. Whereas before she would have stayed in it because she chose to do it, and she probably wouldn't have recognized that much how much it wasn't fulfilling her. So she just came out of it and found something else and started following her soul for that. So yeah, that's a beautiful transformation where I wish all my clients to be. I don't want them to be with me for very long. I want them to be working with me as long as they need to be, and then I want them to fly the nest, and I want them to be modeling exactly what she's doing. Yeah.
You help women, my understanding is you help women at two levels. One, helping them with overcoming whatever challenge they have with their menopause, getting into that. And then you help them do you also help them get in touch with their dormant psychic abilities and help them awaken those? Or
Yeah, intuitive, I would say. It's
okay.
not always psychic, I suppose, maybe making the difference between that. But yeah, certainly getting into trusting their intuition for sure. Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Okay, awesome. Now, let's talk about something that is the theme of this podcast, cause. What would you say is for you, Sally, a cause that you're deeply passionate about?
A cause, what is in, explain a bit to me about that,
Like, for
what you mean by a
example,
cause.
for me, I'm very passionate about education for kids. For example, each time I get a new client, I sponsor a child education or access to football or sports for a certain time, because for me, the two biggest schools of life have been traveling in sports, and that allows and helps to take kids away from the street and the temptation of the street life and put them back on a track and give them a shot at a normal life. So that's something I'm really passionate about.
That's wonderful. I love that you're doing
So
that.
thank you. Is there any such cause that you're deeply passionate about? Any causes that you mentioned that you're giving to charities? Tell us about which cause or charity are very dear to your heart?
Well, I initially I would say it's about caring for our planet, this beautiful
Oh,
planet
yes.
we're on. Of course, connecting with nature, that's big for me. Charities that are important are all to do with that. They're to do with animal welfare as well, and organic farming, big with
Oh,
really,
yes.
let's move into organic farming for everyone as fast as we can. And human rights, Amnesty International, for example.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Big one. Those are beautiful indeed. Now, listen, I really love talking to you. So many things we still can talk. We haven't even talked about, your podcast. You said you mentioned traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Should, could probably do a part two and all of that, but let's start now wrapping things up. Let me finish by asking you a series of rapid fire questions again on advices. Ready?
Okay, go for it.
So, what's the best piece of advice you've received so far?
That's the best piece of advice. Stay true to yourself.
Love that. And what's been so far the worst piece of advice you've received, other than get a job?
Yeah. um, I don't think it was advice, but it was not listening to my intuition. Mm-hmm.
Imagine now that you were blessed with a time machine. You can go back in time and sit face to face with the 18-year-old Sally. What's the number one piece of advice you would give to her, knowing all that you know now?
Oh, love yourself.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
That's something we don't do as much as we need to do.
I didn't do it when I was that age, no.
Yeah. Now, I know you're a podcaster. Imagine that today you have you're the most special guest in the world in your podcast, which is yourself. You're interviewing yourself. What's the number one question you want to ask yourself? What's the first question that comes to your mind? Don't think too much. The first question that comes to your
First
mind.
question that comes to mind, what got you here?
And a short answer. What's your answer? Because that could be an episode for a book topic for a book or another episode. So what's your
Yeah,
answer?
life experiences.
I think this is what my understanding is. This is what life is about. Life is a school, and because I love eating,
Yeah.
for me, it's like more like a 5-star Michelin restaurant for us to try all kind of different dishes. And by dishes, I
Yeah.
mean experiences.
Yes, absolutely. I've had many throughout my life. Some have been really challenging, but wow, I've come out transformed from them all.
Mhm.
Mm.
Speaking of podcast, tell us shortly, what is your podcast about?
Soulful Menopause.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's I just did so I do sometimes interview people. So
Okay.
and I like to do my own stuff as well.
Mhm.
I recently did one on my 3 phases, which because I did say I would circle around to it just in case anybody, I'll do this really quickly, but just in case anyone is interested. I talked about the sacred gateway, when all the chaos comes up. Then there's tending the cauldron when we're in a cave with the cauldron and we're putting all of our stones and rocks into this cauldron full of liquid. We're boiling this liquid down, and then all of those life experiences are coming up and being processed until the point where all these rocks and stones crack open, and then we find these beautiful jewels of wisdom inside. And then we carry those jewels of wisdom with us forward into the sage woman's destiny, where you're then moving forward from this new place without that heavy rucksack, with these beautiful jewels of wisdom which are guiding your way. So just in case anybody was interested, there's a very quick synopsis of that. But yeah, so I talk about things like that on my podcast. I talk about how menopause affects us, my take on it. And then I get guests in as well to talk about how they can support women through menopause.
Absolutely. I'm very passionate about podcasting. Um, I told you, do you have your own book yet?
No, not yet. I'm working on it. So I
You
had
know,
one in the past, but that was a very long time ago. But yeah, no, I am working on a book at the moment. I have the whole idea of the book. I have the structure. It's just when spirits say now is the time to write.
All right. I will, if you want, I can connect you with my publisher that's helping me with my book that's going to go live next week. It's not my book; it's a chapter. She's amazing, very heart centered. I'll connect you to her. But
Thank
speaking
you.
of speaking of that, how long have you been podcasting?
Oh, good question. Crikey. I don't know. I'd have to have a look. 2 years at a guess?
All right, beautiful. How many episodes have you done so far?
Not many. I think, and this is a really, we talked about this before, because I'm like about 37 or something like that.
That's good.
Because I have been through this massive time of transformation. I'm just stepping into my Sage Woman's Destiny right now. And so, you know, it was difficult for me because I was told, well, when you start a podcast, you've got to be, you say you're going to do it every Tuesday, you do it every Tuesday. So I started off at that, but then I was like, hey, this isn't doing me any favors because this is putting a lot of stress on me. And I was finding that I was putting a lot of time and energy into it. And I had so many other things going on in my life. I was in chaos. And so in the end, I decided, okay, I'll just post one when I am drawn to do it. Now, I do hope that, you know, shortly it will start to be a very more regular, you know, once a week or every other week thing. But yeah, I had to let go of that you should do a podcast every single week. And, you know, so I had to let go of that and just allow it to be what it is right now.
Have you been able to use your podcast for your business to get clients through your podcast so far?
Yeah, I mean, you know, and this is without doing it every week. Yes, I've had several women approach me and work with me one-to-one through my podcast. And the beautiful thing about that is that they already know what I'm about.
Thank you. It's what I've been telling people all the time. Yes.
There's no need to explain. You know, they know that they feel very cool to work with me. And I haven't had anyone yet who hasn't felt right because they have vibrated to that energy of me and my business. When I meet them to, first of all, have an open chat, which I do for totally free. If anyone's interested in just chatting with me, I do that. And then we can see if we're a good fit or not. But of course, if they're attracted to me, they really are going to be a good fit. Although they do need to be committed to working with me. That is important. So they have to be 100% ready for it.
Absolutely.
So sometimes it may well be that they're the right fit, but maybe not just yet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, you're speaking totally my language because that's exactly what I've experienced myself. It changed my life, and I'm telling people all day long that I talk to. Listen, podcast is the most powerful platform you can use because it not only allows you to share your story, but allows your audience to get to know you. Yeah. And when someone listens to your podcast over a few weeks, for two reasons: one, they're interested in your topic, and two, they like you as a person, your sense of humor, your personality, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And after a few weeks, it's going to be a natural progression for them. At that time, you don't, as I like to say, you don't have to chase, pitch, convince, seduce, or kidnap someone to do business with you. They will come after you.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
So absolutely, you are sitting on a gold mine. You know, one thing that I love saying is that, you know, we all do at least 3, 4, 5 Zoom calls a day, right? Why not turn just one of those a day into a podcast? And not just with randoms, but to the exact ideal listeners or clients. This is what I teach in my academy, the 3-week launcher program, your challenge, 3-week launcher podcast challenge. I can't even remember the name of my own program sometimes because it's so long. I need maybe to shorten it, you know. But anyways, so this is what we do. You know, we really brainstorm together on that in a way to be very strategic because we're building a podcast for business, not for a hobby. And for that, I invite only my ideal clients, my ideal listeners on my podcast. And then You know, every 10 episode, that's one book.
Right.
I told you last time that a 200-page book is roughly around 60,000 words. Now,
Uh-huh.
one lousy 30-minute podcast episode is about 6,000 words. So as long as you release just one of those a week within 3 months, it's a mathematical certainty. You will have the content for a book. And now after that, give it another month to
Love
package
that.
it together. So every 4 months, you can be releasing a new book. Imagine what that can do to your business or any business. Imagine
Yeah.
next time you go to a conference, summit, you meet someone and they say, "Hey, Sally, it was awesome talking to you. Can I have your business card?" You say, "I'm sorry, I don't have business card, but here's my book."
Yes.
Mind blown.
Yes.
That
Yes.
automatically will
Absolutely.
set you in their mind as an expert without you saying a single
Yeah.
word. And unlike business card that we can't wait to get rid of them. Nobody throws away a book.
Yes. Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
even if they it may sit on the desk for a few months, but eventually they'll get to it when the right time comes.
Yeah.
Oh, let me see that book from Sally. Who's Sally? So reading 1 page, 2 page before I know it, a chapter, and they finish the book in 2 days. Oh my God, I need to contact this Sally girl. You know?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I can't wait until I get to the point where I just feel that I want to sit and start writing.
No,
Yeah.
and the thing is, you don't have to write. That this is, I told you the easiest, smart, and most effective way to publish your next book is through your podcast. Just transcribe the content. Like for example, every 10 episodes, you can do a book on either just straight up verbatim transcribing the episode, or you can do a book on lessons learned, for example, or you can do a book on showcasing 2 or 3 remarkable individuals, for example, or you
Yeah.
can do a book on a theme.
Yeah.
Like for
Yeah. I
example,
love
book
those ideas.
spirituality and menopause. That could be, you already have 37 episodes. I can pretty much guarantee you already have at least 1 or 2 books right there sitting on your hardware somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. I have a different idea for a book at the moment,
Yeah,
and it's going to be it's going to be fiction, but it's going to have fact in it for menopause. But I absolutely love those ideas, Payman. Using your podcast for the content of a book. I think that is fantastic.
I mean, it's a
Yeah.
no-brainer. For me, it's one of the single greatest life and business hacks. Once I heard that, I was like, wow, I need to
Mm-hmm.
implement that. I need to teach that and share it to anyone who would
Amazing.
listen. Even those that were not
Mhm.
willing to listen, I just will tell them anyways. That's awesome. We'll talk about that in a moment after. But listen, let's. One more question, which is my favorite question to ask, the best for the last. And that is, what is the smallest thing you've done that has had the greatest positive impact on both your life and business? For me, for example, has been starting my podcast. What about you, Sally?
I probably would be starting my podcast actually
Wonderful.
because it helps me to get a voice. It
There you
helps me
go.
to put into context,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm about, and you have to start, thinking about talking about where you're at with your business, and it just sort of helps it to form. Yeah, so I'd agree
Beautiful.
with you.
Love that. You're speaking my language. Preach, sister. Preach, preach, preach.
Mm.
Awesome. Listen, absolutely love talking to you. Amazing personality, the stories, fascinating life, and all that. But we will wrap it up for this one. We'll probably, I will bring you back for part 2 in a few weeks. So, but in the meantime, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
They can contact me via my website, soulfulmenopause.com.
Okay.
That's probably the best way. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'll put that in the show notes. Listen, Sally, I salute you. You're a true leader with a heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world with your impact, with your wonderful smile, with your personality, with your impact, your presence. Stay safe, stay awesome. God bless you. We'll definitely be going to be talking a lot more over the next from now on. So take care. I salute you. Have, as we say here, have a fantabulous day ahead of you.
Thanks, Payman. You too.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.